Hi kids, it's Dan Peña, the $1 trillion man of the Godfather series. A lot's happened, even though it's been only a short period of time since I filmed last. This will be again in 3 episodes. And the last of this, 3 sections, not 3 episodes. We'll talk about the comparison between Bitcoin and QLA. I guess this is my cheap slut marketing teaser for you to watch the third section. Everything that I talk about, not everything, almost everything that I talk about is on the website or in one of various of my YouTubes, or I shouldn't be ashamed to say, on Reddit or torrent or someplace. But virtually all the material, and even the templates that you kids keep on asking me to give you, and that only the kids from the seminars get, are on the internet someplace if you look hard enough. And the first thing that I want to talk about is, and I alluded to it the last 3 episodes of, or 3 sections of episode 1, is you guys always tell me that I've read everything you've got, Mr. Peña. I've listened to you for 6 months, 3 years, or whatever. And the truth of the matter is you don't. And because you're careless. More importantly, in my judgment, you're lazy. And that really differentiates the kids from the 2020, or actually from 2015 on, to the kids from the 1990s. I commented last time that we were going to make 2 additions to the Hall of Fame, and we will, and we announced them. We've already announced one on the internet, Nelly from South Africa, who broke my record, or not my record, the mentee record for the amount of EBITDA that he's been able to put up on the board in 3 years, which is $32.5 million in EBITDA, which is incredible. But you're not looking hard enough, and you're lazy. Okay, now, I've been asked, not just in the documentary that is going to come out sooner than later, in the article that came out from the LA Times from April 19th, I believe it was, this year, what do I really mean by a $1 trillion man? I'm not worth $1 trillion. I certainly have, as an individual man, have not created $1 trillion in equity or wealth, but my mentees have easily created $1 trillion. As I said, we have, since 1993, have created in excess of 1 million people that have created $1 million. And if you do your math, or as they say here, if you do your maths, 1 million times 1 million is $1 trillion. And we have countless, we have 30, 40, 50 people that have created billions. And as you know, the largest deal in recorded history, the NEOM, City of the Future in Saudi Arabia, a joint venture between Saudi Arabia and Jordan, and I believe Egypt's in it as well, is a $500 billion project. That, if you want to add all those numbers, those $500 billion is going to create between 3 and 5 billion. Now, some places on the internet, which I find, and some of you kids pass it on to me, you can attribute about over $6 trillion to me. I don't take credit for that. That may be true, but there's virtually no way of me substantiating it, other than the NEOM project is going to be a lot more than 500 billion. But that's what I mean by the $1 trillion man. Now, I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again to try to connect the dots. We're having a seminar coming up in about 20 days here. It's fully booked for June. And why do people come to me, or why do you entertain using QLA? For a lot of reasons, but forget coming here. You can't scrape the money together, et cetera, whatever your reason is. I mean, the content's free. I'm not promoting, I'm not selling, okay? Actually, I'm selling you to get a hold of your life and do something about yourself. I recently have been in an exchange with our middle son and our daughter, and about their lives. They're millennials. One is going to be 35 and one is going to be 39. And they, by normal standards, your standards, before you were introduced to QLA, they're very successful. They're at the head of their groups and they make, multiple six-figure money. But that's not what this program's about. This is if you want to create generational wealth. Now, another thing that differentiates us from just about everybody else is, to the best of my knowledge, to the best of our crack staff's ability, we tell 100% of the truth, no lies, false hopes, or empty promises. Now, we have got guys out there that are selling, not 100%, that are selling QLA or a form of QLA that are not selling 100% of the truth. And they are, if not lying directly, they are, let's say they're stretching the truth. And they're giving you false hopes. And in some cases, empty promises. I'm not making claim to any of those people. And I would ask you, even beg you, even if it's a QLA wannabe or any of the other guys, did they make money before they started coaching? 99.9% of all the gurus and coaches made money off of their coaching efforts, their internet efforts, in the old days, putting asses on seminar seats. But to the best of my knowledge, as of this viewing, the first few days of June 2021, nobody's created generational wealth before they started coaching. We get a lot of inquiries, or we get a lot of statements from people that I'm the father figure they never had, and that's how we came up with the QLA Godfather. As I've told you before, I call virtually everybody kids because I'm either old enough to be your grandfather or father. I'm not here to be your father figure. But what does that say about a vast majority of the people that are looking for help on the internet, whether it's personal development help or financial help or both? They had a shitty father figure. Or in some cases, they didn't have any father figure at all. At least 40 or 50% of the people that come to the seminar were raised by one parent. And almost always it's the mom. But I'm not a substitute for your father. First of all, if I had been your father, I would have whooped you, and you wouldn't probably be in the state that you're in now. But a lot of people come here, but i.e., that's why we came up with the idea of the QLA Godfather. And although, as I've said many, many times over many, many years, we have 3 kids, that's all we need. We're not in the adoption business, and we don't need any more kids. But being the QLA Godfathers, I'm a mentor, sometimes chairman, very, very, very seldom chairman. And since I turned 75, I've made a comment on this. I have resigned from several chairmanships. I believe, since I turned 75, only accepted 1, possibly 2 chairmanships that I can think of off the top of my head, because I'm cutting back. I'm not adding on. Closing in on my 76th birthday in about 7 weeks. And as time goes on, between now and the time I'm 80, which is the plan, my plan, God plans, man plans, God laughs, is to do this till I'm 80. So I've got about 4 more years, is to take fewer and fewer and to exit the chairmanships of the companies that I'm already on board with. Exit meaning to sell off to somebody, either a strategic buyer or they go public. So although I enjoy, and it doesn't necessarily make me feel any better when you ask me to be your chairman, but don't come to the seminar because you think I'm going to be your chairman. Don't come to the seminar. And again, we just had somebody not fall out, that doesn't sound right. Fallout's the right word for the June seminar because something happened, an emergency in his family. So even though we're all fully booked, Winnica has replaced them already. So there are spots from time to time if you're really serious. So contact Winnica. I started calling the current generation snowflakes about 15 years ago. And I started calling the current generation snowflakes because even though I thought the economic environment was easy, and especially before we had the lowest interest rates in 5,000 years, and I'll comment about interest rates in a little bit because they're starting to edge up again. And inflation will be with us, as Mr. Buffett and I both agree. Inflation is coming. It's sooner than later. Is that you weren't taught to be tough mentally. And so you have, by definition, taken the easy way out. A river meanders because it finds the softest spot on the sides of the river to go where there's less resistance, and that's why it meanders. Well, most of the kids have meandered through life, and their parents or whoever's been responsible for raising them have allowed that. When our kids were growing up, we had very strict guidelines. I told my kids just in the last 10 days, I wish that I had been stricter with them, tougher with them, and I was pretty tough with them because I still believe that spare the rod, spoil the child. Of course, that is in contrary to all the current belief now. The belief systems and the woke generation, etc., and the cancel generation is to be easier, not harder. Naomi, the world-class or number one or maybe number two tennis gal who just dropped out of the French Open as I speak here. I have no comment on whether she should have dropped out or she shouldn't have dropped out, but we're certainly making a big hoopla about it. And she says it's due to mental health, and I take her at her word. That's not something to make poke fun at or to make up. But why is it such a big deal? Because she drops out. If she had dropped out because if she had hurt her leg, I won't say nobody gave a shit. But it's because now half the people are for her and they're commiserating because they can relate to mental health issues. The other half are against what she's done because it's not in the spirit of competition, it's not in the spirit of tennis. Everybody that ever played in a final at Wimbledon or ever played in the World Cup or ever played in the World Series in baseball didn't necessarily feel mentally at his 100% wits, yet he still went forward. So everybody, as Serena Williams said, everybody reacts to pressure differently. And if you do suffer from mental health problems, we have had people that were almost like One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. Kind of crazy, make a lot of money. You don't have to be mentally healthy to use the QLA steps. Some people would say, arguably, perhaps rightfully so, I'm not mentally healthy. And one of the things, after this, I'm going to be interviewed for up-and-coming possible TV series. Showbiz is my life again. It's resurrected itself. Is that my legacy I want to leave is that, in especially the Hispanic community, the minority community, if Dan Peña can do it, anybody can do it. But snowflakes and political correctness, in my judgment, will be the beginning of the end of the human race. Remember, this is connecting the dots, QLA. Now, for those of you that did actually do homework about me on the internet and have really listened to the YouTubes, you know that it was my desire to be a lifetime Army guy, and I was going to be went into private. And when I got out of the military, when I decided to get out of the military, I was a first lieutenant, soon to be captain. I didn't stick around to be a captain. But why did I leave? I was happy as Larry. I loved the discipline. I loved be given goals and achieving them and getting something for that achievement. It wasn't money. But it was, raising rank, and I'm fairly confident I would have been a very senior officer. I would have been a general officer by the time I retired. And I've had the pleasure in the last year of being on a board with a retired four-star Marine general, and a fine man. I'm looking forward to playing golf with him someday after the corona. But when we discussed the military, he said, Dan, the military is not like when you were in. And I got out before he started his long 40-year career. But I got out of the Army quite by serendipity. But I pulled the trigger and took action as I've always have. And this is the sequence, the short version of the sequence. I had asked to stay in the military. I was asked by my superior officers, Dan, you should stay in. You're what the Army needs, blah, blah, blah. Like the big posters, the Army needs you, the USA needs you. And so I was going to stay in and become a regular Army officer. I was just looking at the paperwork, maybe the last 2 or 3 weeks. I was going through my files and I found it, old file, where it says that Major so-and-so has told Colonel so-and-so that he has recommended that you stay in the military. Yeah, okay. Well, about that same time, I was at Ramstein's Officers Club in Ramstein, Germany, which is a Air Force base. It's still an Air Force base in Germany. And I walked into the Officers Club, and this is also on YouTube someplace, and everybody was drinking to excess. Now, 15 cents for a Heineken beer, 25 cents for a mixed drink. I mean, you could drink to excess very easily. And I asked one of the guys, I said, why does everybody seem to be drinking in hyperspeed? Of course, I didn't know what hyperspeed, I didn't say it that way, but why are they drinking more? And he says, well, so-and-so just inherited $1.4 million, $1,400,000 from his grandmother. I said, okay. Well, and so I know he didn't have all the money right in front of him, but he felt it incumbent upon himself to just buy the shit out of buying drinks for everybody. It's like in the movies, drinks for the house. And I don't know what the bill could have been. It might have been $1,000, 10, 15 cents a drink. But I asked the guys, sat at the table, and I said, $1,400,000, could you write that on a napkin for me? And I can close my eyes today and see him 1,400,000. I can say with my hand on my heart, or where my heart's supposed to be over here, that's the first time I had ever seen a million written down. And I said, okay, well, let's drink up. So that's the first seed that dropped. A few weeks later, I'm at my regular Army post. I'm in the Officers Club again. And I had just received an award for saving the United States Army Europe a couple $1 million over 20 years for an idea I came up with. And it had to do with computers. Hard to believe, but it had to do with computers, which I knew nothing about. And I got an award. And online, someplace, there's me standing with standing next to a one-star general who was handing me an award. And that award was a war bond, United States Army war bond. And the war bond was for $50. So I saved them a couple million, they gave me $50. But that $50 war bond was only worth $50 at the end of 30 years. So right then, it was worth about $6 or $7. So with compound interest, which was low, if I kept it 30 years, I got $50. So I had this award. So, quite frankly, a lot of the other junior officers were making fun of me. That the senior officers said, well, Peña's at least trying to, do good for the Army. So that was a plus on the senior Army officer's mind, but maybe not a plus, but a negative on the junior officers. Well, what does he want to be? A kiss ass, a brown nose, et cetera, et cetera. So in that same time frame, a week or two later, I'm standing in the Officers Club at the bar. And to the left of me is a 2-star general named Woodrow Vaughn. To the right of me is a 1-star general named Roy Atterbury. Roy Atterbury was the guy I had the most to do with in the military. He was from Texas. I won't say he was a racist, but he's from Texas, and he used to say, you are the biggest disgrace in this man's army to be an officer. If we're making Mexicans like you officers. Mexicans like me, okay. So I'm standing there, and General Vaughn turns to me and says, Danny, and that's what they called me in those days, even though I didn't like it, but you didn't tell a 2-star general not to call you Danny. He says, you ought to be buying all the drinks. And I go, of course. I said yes, and I ordered drinks for the bar. And then I said, well, why should I be ordering drinks, General Vaughn? He said, well, you got that goddamn award from the Army. Now, he made it sound like, it was $10,000. And I said, well, General, that $50 war bond will be good in 30 years. By that time, even I'll be retired from the military. And he said, but right now it's worth $6. And so then he said, oh my God. Okay, then he pointed at General Atterbury and said, Roy, you buy the drinks. 2-star General, 10 and 1-star General. But then, 4 or 5 drinks into the afternoon, early evening, he said to me, and we're looking in the mirror behind the bar, similar to the mirror behind me at this bar, my pub here at Guthrie Castle. You know, Danny, a young man like you could get rich in the civilian world. I can still close my eyes and see above my head, like a dream, dollar signs. A young man like you could get rich in the civilian world. A young man like you could get rich in the civilian world. A young man like you. I was out of the Army in 6 months. It had never occurred to me to get out of the Army because I liked it. And 2, it never occurred to me being rich. I didn't go in the Army, volunteer for the draft in 1966, because I was going to get rich. As you've heard on other YouTubes, I got in a lot of trouble, and they arrested 4 or 5 times. And so, as I've told you, my father's only goal for me growing up was to keep me alive until I reached the age of reason. Keep Danny alive until he reached the age of reason. When that would be, 20, 30, or 40, we didn't know. I got out of the military. I only went back to university. This answers another question. Why did I go back to university after flunking out 3 times? Why did I go back to university when I've said countless times you don't need it? Well, a couple of reasons. Number 1, my mom wanted me to because nobody on her family had ever graduated from university. And number 2, because I wanted to, I didn't like, even at that age, I didn't like not finishing things. So I went back to university and I essentially finished a 4-year degree in 2.5 years and graduated with some honors and at CSUN. And the reason I call it a school you got to explain about is because when I went to California State University, Northridge, it wasn't called California State University, Northridge. It was called San Fernando Valley State College. And a year or 2 after I graduated in January 1971, I've been out of school 50 years now. 50 years. So that's why I got out of the Army. And at that time I was happy, but a lot of my comrades, colleagues, unfortunately passed during the Vietnam era, and some of the older ones during the Afghanistan, etc., Gulf War era. But that's why I got out of the Army.